How's it going, Andrew?
What's going on, Matt?
Not much. Feeling pretty good about that day of light yesterday.
Super fun. Welcome to episode 20.
Ooh, yeah, that's actually a big benchmark there. Episode 20, and we just broke 1,000 downloads.
1,000 downloads. We've been listened to at this point around the world somehow. We have a very loyal listener in Bavaria. Shout out.
Yeah.
And, we've had people in the UK, a lot of people in Wisconsin and around the US. And so, happy episode 20.
Right, for sure. And happy, I know we just mentioned the Day of Light, but I really don't want to gloss over the fact that we had a degree team yesterday for that we had multiple people on that team that were doing parts for the first time and did it in a room with 100 people in it and crushed it. And I've said this in certain circles about our officer line is I have challenged them early this year a couple of times now with the Rusty Nail degree, and Burns dinner is always a challenge, and we have breakfast with Santa, which is, a big one. And now we had this, and they've stepped up to it every time. And every time my response is the same: get the hard stuff out of the way early, and then all the rest of it's easy.
Well, and it's funny because the way our schedule lines up, we really hit the ground running. And it's almost like I remember I was frustrated the other day with how far along I got at learning to confer the EA degree. And I was like, dude, I should be farther at this. Like, what's going on? And then my brain goes, it's the end of January right now. And I was like, right. I've been in its position for 1 month, and I'm about halfway through. And I was like, okay, it just feels like it's been more months because of how busy we have been. And I was like, and so then even when we were practicing, I may have been a little too high expectation on these officers because I kind of forgot. I'm like, oh my God, we've been in these positions for 3 weeks. Like, of course they're still learning, what's going on.
Right.
But yeah, they did a really good job. And it was funny because, we did four practices, three practices. And between the first one, the second one, and the third one, it was
marked improvement.
Leap in improvements. And yeah, and then that room was intimidating.
Yeah.
That was a lot of faces.
It was very intimidating. And then you'll learn once you go to confer your first one that just expect yourself to screw it up. I missed some stuff. I missed 5 words at one point yesterday, and I forgot a part, and thankfully it wasn't a very important part, but I forgot the part completely. So that'll...
It was a part that by and large is, in that circumstance, is kind of useless, to be honest, because it's not really following the normal structure.
Right.
But it was interesting because our junior steward who was doing the charge right when the people were filing, row 1, row 2, row 3, 100 people filing in. He looks over at me and he's like, oh my God. I was like, so remember how we practiced where you walk up and down the rows, and we sat down? I'm like, you're going to have to do that. And I said, just look at their foreheads, just scan back and forth, look at their foreheads. You'll be all right. And he did a great job.
No, he did an excellent job. And, I said to him afterwards, next time you do it, you have to do it looking one person face to face with maybe 20 or 30 people in the room. So if you can do it here, you got that one easy.
Yep. And the only thing he could have improved is projecting his voice more, but it was only because there's 100 people.
Right.
Whereas in his vocal level, if it would have been one-on-one at Lodge, would have been totally perfect because, it's a one-on-one. I mean, you want the audience to be able to hear, but that was an unusual space, and the acoustics in there weren't super conducive, so you really had to project.
Right. Exactly. But enough about that and how awesome our guys did. Why don't we run the intro and introduce our very special guest that we have with us today?
Let's do it.
Loosen up your ties and roll up your sleeves. It's time for fellowship with Matt and Andrew. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are not necessarily the views and opinions of the Grand Lodge of Wisconsin or any other Grand Lodge or any appended body.
Well, so for all you listening out there, today we have a very special guest with us. We have Worshipful Brother Jeremy Mathis from Waukesha 37. He is also a member of all the York Rite bodies, Scottish Rite. He's currently the marshal at the Artaban Grotto here in Wisconsin, and a member of the National Sojourners. So welcome, Jeremy.
Hey guys, good to be here, and I'm honored because of the names that you've had on this podcast. And I mean, you've had Cholka and Teely and Gunderson and Vukadinovich on here. So like, I'm just honored to be among those names. Happy to be here.
We've always said that the goal of our podcast wasn't to try to grab like the biggest and the best Masons we can find. It was to grab Masons we want to talk to.
Yeah.
And so we're not determined. We're not looking just for purple. We're just kind of making our rounds. We have a long list of people that were like, I just think it'd be fun to have a conversation. And so you were on that list, and we know you're an avid listener too. So we're like, hey, let's put him on the next episode because I thought it'd be a good person to bring on.
Well, you nailed it, because those are all guys that I love having conversations with too. So that's exactly right.
It's like when people try to think like, why are they selecting certain people? It's legitimately like, if we've met you in the wild and had a conversation, you're like, I kind of like talking to that guy. I think he's got an interesting perspective. Let's grab him and talk to him. So it's really, we do it very organically. It's just kind of like, hey, and based on availability and stuff like that too.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, and it was great. This actually is like really good timing because, you and I knew each other and we had conversations in passing and stuff. But then over this last summer, we had that time that it was just the two of us at that one charity ride. Yeah, and did a poker run on the bikes all day together, just the two of us hanging out. So
that was fun.
It was a good day. That was a great day.
Cool. So let's kick you off with the first question we ask kind of everyone. I ask it in a lot of different ways. So I polished it so it can sound better. Can you share a bit about your personal Masonic journey into Masonry and what inspired you to join?
Sure. So it's interesting how everybody, it's kind of a unique way into Masonry. And my way was I have no family that were Masons. I had no like ties to Masonry before I really joined. I was always interested in the secrets of Freemasonry and all the history that it holds. And you see all the History Channel stuff and all the movies, and there's all these facts, quote unquote, that are presented to you. And you're like, how much of that is actually real and how much of that is actually just completely fiction or whatever. So I was always interested. And then I was riding motorcycles with a motorcycle buddy of mine, and I noticed a pin that he had on his vest. It was a Mason, so I asked him about it, and he said, well, I think you'd make a good Mason, but he was from Michigan. So he's like, you're just going to have to ask somebody local.
Yep.
I was like, well, I don't know anybody in Wisconsin that's a Mason.
Right.
So I found local lodges. Waukesha 37 I found their website, and I did an internet inquiry, and they reached out to me right away. My first interaction was Worshipful Brother Dale Hartung, and we met at Magellan's, which is owned by a brother downtown Waukesha.
What is that?
Tavern.
Oh, cool.
And we had a beer, and he asked me, why do you want to be a Mason? And I answered, I don't know. It was an honest answer. I really didn't know what I was getting into, and I just knew I kind of felt called to it, and something just kept bringing it up in my mind. He said, well, that's a fair answer. And then I got involved, and I loved it. I love being in a room with all these different people, different generations, different occupations that normally I would never be in the same room with. And yeah, it keeps me coming back.
Very cool. It's always interesting. Like I want to like compile like all the answers we get to that question. It's always very similar. It's like you hear History Channel, National Treasure for some reason.
It's real.
That's if they don't have a family connection. And I'm finding that a lot of Masons now coming into Masonry I don't have a family connection. And I've been talking to a bunch of newer guys, and it used to be a lot of, my grandpa's a Mason, my uncle, etc. And that still definitely happens.
Oh, sure.
But I've been seeing a lot of guys are just curious, and it ends up, they start coming in and hopefully not Googling too much and, thinking that we're the Illuminati. But some people even come in, the unique ones are the people who think we're the Illuminati, become disappointed that we're not, but then find something else beautiful. And then they go, well, actually, I kind of like this more. And then you're like, well, there you go.
Well,
happily disappointed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to talk to you about when I knew you're coming in, because I know that you and a couple of other brethren worked to reestablish the Grotto in Wisconsin. And I think they used to have a grotto in Wisconsin, right?
There was a grotto. I can't remember how long ago it was. I want to say it was like the 90s that it kind of just went away. When this grotto was established, they thought it was the first. They did some research and found out there was another one. For the moment, they're the only grotto, and that's Audubon Grotto in Wisconsin, and they meet in Waukesha.
So you were saying earlier, what's the full name of this order?
Yeah, so MOVPER is Mystic Order of the Veiled Prophets of the Enchanted Realm.
So, and what year did you officially kick it off? When did it reopen its doors?
Audubon was 2020.
2020. So it's
because I think we're the fourth year.
okay.
I think it was 2019, 2020. It's right around COVID.
So for the listeners who don't know what the grotto is, and even me, I only have a light understanding.
Yeah.
What is its history and what's it all about?
Yeah, so I mean, start at the beginning. Right around 1889 was when the grotto was first kind of formed. There was a group of guys that would meet. They were chapter guys. They're actually York Rite chapter guys, and they're also in the Blue Lodge. And they did a lot of work. And, but Blue Lodge and York Rite, it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't deviate from the ritual. It's very important that you do the ritual as such and take it very seriously. Probably particularly in the 19th century, I'm positive that there was no let's have fun. They're like, no, fun is not good.
Right.
So this group of guys, they started meeting together to have fun. And they would they'd be doing their practices for whatever degrees or whatever they needed to know, but they'd be doing it at another location, and they might be having some cocktails or whatever, and they'd be doing it somewhere else. And it turned into this group of guys that had fun outside of Blue Lodge and outside of all of the quarries and masonry that, hard work is required. And the story is that they were in one of the members' basements in Hamilton, New York in 1889-ish. And his wife said something about, it's like a grotto down there or something. And the name just kind of stuck. So they just started getting called grottos. And that's how it was formed. It was formed out of pure fellowship, a focus on just fellowship. And that's pretty much what it is today. If you look around your typical grotto function, you will see past grandmasters, past masters, past commanders, all these guys that they put a lot of work into the quarries of Freemasonry. And then they go to the grotto. I'm going to let loose here. Things don't matter as much here. It's okay if I don't get something right. It's fine. I can play jokes on my friends. Whereas
Right.
Blue Lodge, there's less room for, obviously there's plenty of room for fellowship, but there's less room for
Tomfoolery.
going out. Tomfoolery is a great way to put it. Yeah. There's things that you don't really, I don't really want to do that inside Blue Lodge because it needs to be.
You want to keep a level of decorum.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Grotto, you can kind of let loose a little bit, let your hair down.
Sure.
So yeah, that's what Grotto is. That's what we try to do.
So how did you go about, were you on the original team that was working to set up the grotto?
I came in on the tail end.
Okay.
So I'm a charter member, but the other guys did all the work. I just kind of signed up.
Sure. So what was that experience like, or what did you hear from them as far as how was the process of getting the grotto set back up?
It was a process. I think a lot of it happened behind the scenes, really. I mean, past Grandmaster Bob Strader was one of the founders, and he just, we're just going to set this thing up and we're going to do this. And it was great. It provided us all a place to go outside of all the quarries. I'm not really sure of all the intricate details of setting it up, but we got a charter from Supreme Grotto. Wisconsin Grand Lodge authorized us to do it. And actually, the Wisconsin Grand Lodge has been excellent enough to have Audubon Grotto have a hospitality room at AC for 2 years now.
I visited that. It's fun.
It's a blast. It's a great time. We have a lot of fun going between the two rooms, the shrine and the Grotto hospitality room.
Yep.
We have a lot of fun.
Go from the red fezzes to the black fezzes.
Red fez to black fez, yeah. And back.
Yeah.
So what's the story behind the name of the Audubon? That's what it's called, right? Audubon Grotto.
Audubon Grotto is the story is, and I don't know I don't think there's any actual truth to this, but it's fun. The story of the fourth wise man. And he was a Persian king of sorts. And he was going to go with his friends, the three wise men, to deliver gifts to Jesus. And he never met him because along the way, he had to sell all of his things to help people along the way. So, and he died before he ever got to complete the mission, which, full circle, he was doing all these things for everybody along the way. You could consider that, So it's a cool story, and everybody liked it, and the name is fun, and so it's Artaban Grotto.
That's
better
cool.
than those at refreshment guys down there at the Chili Grotto. Oh, I mean Shai-Il.
Shai-Il, I'll tell you what, Shai-Il was instrumental in helping us set up. Those guys are a blast. The podcast is fun. That's another one to listen to. Artaban can't thank Shai-Il enough.
Oh, I'm sure.
For they came up every meeting that we had. Shai-Il was there for the first year.
That's awesome.
Always there, and of course, the meetings are pretty short, right? So the meetings are like, if they're 45 minutes, you're doing something wrong. So get down to the business. If you can't get it all done, not a big deal. We're going out to the bar, And they all came out and had fellowship with us after, and we became really good friends. We went down to their place. They meet at Villa Park, and they had a full ceremonial, which is like a big degree. It has like 7 parts to it or something. I think they did the 3-part short one. Had a blast. I mean, those guys are so much fun. And again, you look around that room at Shai-Il, it's all past high priests, past masters, Grand Lodge guys. It's pretty neat.
So to me, it sounds like the draw of the grotto is similar to the shrine in the way that it's fellowship focused, but it seems to me that it is more personal, and it includes a lot of guys who were hardworking Masons in their respective, like you said, their quarries, going to work, and then they're coming to go and to a smaller group of guys than the shrine's massive. You know what I mean? And they're able to do a lot of cool stuff with the largeness of that. But it seems to me like the niche of the grotto is that it's a little more personal, but still fun focused.
It's very fun and fellowship focused. And so like even the shrine, there's so much going on that you end up having to work. And if you love it, that's good. But grotto, you really try not to work that hard. I mean, that's just, we work so hard everywhere else.
Right.
What's the point? Everyone, unless we really, really, really want to do something, we're really not going to, we don't want to work. We work everywhere else. Blue Lodge, most of us are very active in Blue Lodge. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of fun too. When you guys know Lake Lodge has that fellowship and they're huge. You guys got this ball of fire burning. It takes a lot of work to get that going, and a lot of work to keep it going. And when you do that in Blue Lodge, and you do that in Scottish Rite, and you do that in New York Rite, and you do that everywhere else, it's nice to. Do I want to work? No, no, I don't want to work. I want to have fellowship.
Just hang out and just relax and recharge the battery so you can get back to your Blue Lodge recharged as you sequestered away in the grotto.
Yeah.
The other thing I've understood about the grotto is they're more inclusive of the ladies than a lot of other Freemasonry bodies.
Yeah. All of our big events, all the ladies are invited to. So, and we tried to, the way we're set up is higher dues, and then when we have events, the grotto just picks it up. So you and your lady can go to whatever event, and it's just sign up for it and go, and the grotto just pays for it.
That's sweet.
And we try to do things that you can't normally do, like with a couple of your friends. So we're trying to get events where you can't just sign up for this with a couple of your friends. You need to have an organization with a bunch of money to be in this special part of the stadium or wherever. So we're trying to get into that. And
so it's a little more exclusive feeling.
More exclusive.
So that you have more of a
draw.
A draw for you. We say, I have expensive dues, but it's worth it because we do ABC,
even if
1,
it's
2,
not
3.
like a super special thing, at least it's a big, like we did a dinner at Crawdaddy's and it was a blast. I mean, we went all out. There was oysters and we all had a really great time. our most recent event was Mondo Lucha. We went to Mondo Lucha.
What's Mondo Lucha?
So it's a local wrestling thing.
Oh, God.
And because we've kind of taken on like a wrestling theme, and not a lot of us are actual fans of wrestling, but it is a lot of fun to like, I don't know, reminisce about watching wrestling as a
You're
kid.
going to become wrestling fans now.
Yeah,
tell you
now we're all wrestling fans. But if you saw the logo for the hospitality room, that was designed by Worshipful Brother Zach Frankowski, who's Grotto, and it's like Hulk Hogan version of the Prophet Mokana, which is the Grotto guy, and he used like kind of like a Hulkamania font, and it just kind of is becoming our thing. And yeah, it's a blast. I mean, we're just whatever. Let's have fun. Let's do it. Great time.
What kind of events? You went to the wrestling event, you went to Karate Days. What kind of events have you guys been doing?
We did a Doc Hounds game. What else did we do? Oh, we went down to what's that Polish bowling alley on I can never think of the name of it. It's one of the oldest sanctioned bowling alley, and it's in West Dallas.
It's just got the 2 lanes in the
The
basement.
2 lanes in the basement.
Yep. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head right now either, but yeah, I've thrown a couple balls down the lanes there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, when we talked in the hospitality room, I don't think it was last year, I think it was the year before that one actually, about what the Grotto was. I was super impressed and interested in kind of what it entails. I mean, right now in my Masonic career, I'm on a don't join anything else hiatus until this baby gets a little bit older.
Yeah.
But I've always been kind of interested. So if anyone wanted to get more information on the Grotto, how do they reach out?
Well, you can find us on Facebook, but it's mostly face-to-face. Pretty much you got to know someone at Grotto. If you're at annual communication, come to the hospitality room. That's the best way to do it. And then you can meet everyone face-to-face and have a good time. We are on Facebook. Yeah, I think face-to-face would be the best. We meet first Monday at Waukesha. You can always hit up a Grotto guy on Facebook Messenger and be like, hey, man, I'd like to come out and hang out with you guys. And that's how we've gotten our new members, is like text message or Facebook message, like, hey, I'm kind of interested in Grotto. And then we'll just be like, okay, well, we're meeting, just kind of hang out at Waukesha Lodge. The meeting won't be long, and then we'll go out to the bar after, and because that's conveniently located downtown Waukesha. There's like 7 bars, 2 of them are owned by brothers, and
so you guys always meet at Waukesha Lodge. So it's in Waukesha Mondays. Artaban Grotto. Look it up on Facebook. Find a Grotto member. Check out Annual Communications Hospitality Room.
yes,
How
sir.
many members are you guys at? Just out of curiosity. Do you know roughly?
Roughly 30.
Oh, sweet. That's a pretty good
That's
group.
not bad at all.
Yeah, that's a pretty good group.
Yeah.
Do you guys, one more question about the Grotto before we move on to other stuff. Do you guys have a charity you support?
So the grand charity, the Supreme Grotto, I forget what the actual name of the Supreme is. It might be a Supreme Council of some sort. Their big charity is anything to do with dental issues for children with special needs.
Oh, awesome.
Because that is a huge unmet need.
Yeah.
Kids with special needs, their dental issues are just kind of, it's not something that everybody really thinks about. So they picked that up. And yeah, that's their charity.
No, that's an awesome one. I mean, yeah, because I'm sure, the dentist has to take special considerations. And
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
It is a lot harder than any
That's
regular
like,
person. Yeah.
Nobody ever really thinks about, haircuts for special needs kids and how much of a different experience that is for them versus like us, and for the barber and what the barber has to.
I'm sure that requires not only training, but experience.
Right.
You got to know all the different needs and be able to accommodate that.
Right.
Yeah. And dentistry, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a very,
Yeah.
Well, and dentistry is not usually really that well covered by insurance and stuff either. And, anyone who's had any serious dental needs knows how much having dental needs can affect your confidence too.
Yeah. Don't
And
remind me.
yeah, I was going to say Matt probably knows firsthand.
Yep.
And, a lot of times for people like that, it's very hard to get the resources to get the needs that they would need to have that confidence. And it can actually be very life-changing to fix someone's smile.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. They have so many other things to worry about. Why not fix their smile and give them some confidence? So yeah, they picked that They were looking for, because obviously every group in Masonry has all these wonderful charities to go to. And that was one that they didn't see covered, so they picked it up.
Sweet. No, I like that. That's awesome.
It's a great question. Yeah.
It's good for people to know, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
that is.
organization about fellowship, where you can let your hair down, but you can still do some good work at the same time, right?
Mhm.
You
Yep,
know,
absolutely.
actually, I have a fun one here. Andrew would usually have asked this early on, but you're involved in a lot of stuff with commandery and the York Rite bodies and Scottish Rite. I know you're going through the Houtgrad Academy right now over at Scottish and stuff like that. So what kept you coming back after you joined Masonry? What kept you around? What made you decided you wanted to be this level of involved, go through your officer line and do all this other stuff?
So many things, but there's always more. And I think that's what keeps me coming back. Just generally, there's always more. There's more of what I originally joined to find answers and to find more questions and to find more knowledge. And there's just never ending. So that keeps me coming back automatically. Besides that, there's the fellowship. There's the being in the room with someone you never would have otherwise met. Someone you probably wouldn't get along with at all outside of Masonry, like there's people.
Don't point at me.
It's being able to find common ground with guys that you wouldn't even look for common ground with outside of Masonry at all. Wouldn't even cross your mind. That's another thing. The charity that we do, all the great things that we do in our communities, especially Wisconsin Freemasonry with the FSTs and all that. Awesome job. It's really amazing what we can do. And it's kind of, I'll be honest with you, it's kind of selfish for me because that makes me feel good. And even if I'm like, take away the fact that I'm helping other people, like that's great. I'm helping myself too. I feel better doing stuff.
Right.
And that's all of that combined.
It's just called being fulfilled.
Yeah. It's very fulfilling.
I would agree with you though on that point. Like, yeah, sometimes like when we do something really good or something, I'm like, yes, that's awesome that we accomplished that. This FST stuff's awesome. I'm so proud of it, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, wait, am I supposed to feel good about doing good?
Am I being selfish?
Right. Yeah.
Just a reminder, guys, we are not Buddhist monks.
Right.
We are not ascetics. We are not some sort of mystical monk. We are humans who are. I found that Masonry sits somewhere in the middle, which we always like to circumscribe our passions.
Right.
So I think that it's well within the charter of being a Mason to feel good about doing good things.
Yeah.
Right. But you understand the question we're asking. It's one of those things like you're doing
philosophical
something
thing,
to be selfless, right?
Right.
But then you feel good in
And
the process of being selfless, which,
And then if that gets a little bit, kind of addicting because that feels really good and I love doing that. And then it's like, is this an addiction? Am I addicted? Is this selfish? Am I wrong?
Dude, I'm going to say right now, all those philosophers who are like, you must do, but feel nothing because it is simply a good action to do. They're so full of, I can't say the word, but they're so full of it because they're saying it, but they still feel good. There's no way they're like, I just do good and I feel nothing. I'm so detached from my goodness. And you're like, okay,
Lies.
You sound like you're talking a big talk. And
You
I understand.
sit on a throne of lies.
I understand the sentiment. Don't get me wrong. I understand the sentiment. It is a nice sentiment, but I think it is okay to feel fulfilled by being good.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
It's a good thing.
I agree.
Yep.
Now that we're speaking a little bit on how you were saying it felt personally fulfilling, what ways do you think Masonry's contributed to your personal development?
A lot. So I'd say the most change that's obvious to me is leadership abilities and public speaking abilities, things that I was not good at. Those were not developed until I went through the line. And I say Blue Lodge, going through the line at Blue Lodge is like a leadership school. It is the place to go to make mistakes. If you need to, your brothers are going to be there to help you out. It's a perfect place to learn to be a leader. And that's where I learned it. I learned to create events.
Mm-hmm.
I can event plan now. It's not that hard. Before Blue Lodge, if you asked me to run an event, there's no way. I'd be like, where do I start?
Yep.
Now it's like, hey, plan a fundraiser. Oh, yeah, I can do that. Sure.
Right.
That's one of the things, development as a leader, as a person in an organization, I can do those things now. Teaching, I've gotten a little bit better at that. I've never been able to teach things before. And now I kind of understand development in other people and bringing them up and teaching them how to do the things that you did, which I know you guys are definitely learning right now, getting the stewards in and getting the deacons and going, well, this is what I did. You don't have to do it this way, but this is how I did it. And they'll have their own style. They'll have their own way of doing things. And then you just kind of help them develop that. And that's something I learned to do through Masonry, which is really cool. I never would have known that otherwise.
It is like a very unique byproduct of the officer's line for sure, because the officer line is, there's a lot of talk in Masonry about like, is Masonry leadership training? And you're like, no, but the officer's line is yes, because the officer's line is preparing you to lead the lodge. So by necessity, it is trying to impart the skills that you're going to need to take on that responsibility. And it is, it is such a cool experience to see that. I think most people have leadership potential. Like, there are natural leaders. Don't get me wrong. People can just be good. Various skills. People who are loud, charismatic, they're organized. They're always going to have an advantage. But I think that everybody has the ability to, with their own strengths and weaknesses, to lead. It just needs to be developed.
Development.
And say, okay, if you're not so good at this, find someone who complements you and put them in the line with you to kind of offset where you are a little bit weaker.
Yeah.
And then you min-max your strengths and, and then develop together so that you can try to, it's like you're not going to be a 7-foot tall basketball player, but if you wanted to be good at basketball, you could work on some things to give yourself a better edge.
Yeah. And it would help to know a 7-foot basketball player, and then
put him on your center.
Get him on your junior deacon.
That's a particularly interesting point, though. And when you look at the officer line, like, yeah, it's great, and you can develop a bunch of great leaders, but that predicates itself on the fact that you have great leaders coming beforehand that were also developed appropriately. Because bad leaders typically are not going to produce good leaders.
Critical.
Or they will, because the people will look at them and go, I got to do everything the exact opposite way they just did.
Yeah. Or reinventing the wheel. And
right.
Yeah. It's just.
But that's why the line's not one person. You can have multiple, sub leaders within the organization. So if you have one person who's a little bit doesn't quite get it, it didn't quite fall together, you can have other people kind of offsetting that and still
different
developing.
Strengths. Yep. All different strengths.
Well, it's a team, which is helpful, but I think we need to remember that it's important that we choose our leaders carefully so that we don't develop bad leaders after them.
Yeah. And if you see things that need to be developed in people coming up, you say, man, if they're still doing this when they're senior warden or worshipful master, you might need to just whisper that good counsel. Like, by the way, that's not going to work well when you get into primary leadership. You're going to have a bad time. Like, someone's not going to like that, or it's going to steer the lodge in a funny way. And it'll maybe it's something that might create disharmony. You can go, hey, by the way, when you're moving through these positions, you keep in mind that there's these other perspectives. There's these other strengths that you need to feed off of. And, sometimes you have to let other people just steer the ship for a second. There's all these personality things that come through, and it's fun to do. It really is. You develop leaders and you get to see people build confidence. That's cool. That's a great thing in Masonry.
I love watching when you're a mentor for a while. I mentored for a long time now we have a counselor established, which is awesome. I was taking on a lot of mentoring with a lot of other brothers in lodge of new candidates. It's so fun after a couple of years seeing them go into the line and seeing you remembering the person they were when you were mentoring with them, and then seeing the man they've become.
Oh yeah.
I'm like a proud dad.
Yeah.
Even though some of my mentees are older than me, but I'm still their proud daddy.
Yeah. When you watch someone, you show someone, this is how you succeed at this. And then you see them do it on their own. And it's like, yes, that my work is done.
I agree. Yeah. It is a great feeling. I mean, you're training your own replacements, but you're happy about it.
Yeah, you are. And you're doing it for the lodge. Like, everything's for the lodge. when you are done with your time in the East, you'll be coming back, and you'll be, Andrew will still be here doing primary officer things. He'll be senior warden next year. You'll still be there to be like,
oh yeah,
don't do that.
The College of Past Masters getting in
It
here.
is, and it's important, and you don't always have to listen to them, but it's good to take their advice and go take it into consideration.
Right.
Is that going to impact this? It just might, and then you might change how you do things a little bit. And it might be like, hey, by the way, I tried that and it failed miserably. So, maybe do it a different way.
Right. No, and that kind of advice is super useful, and I think since we're on this topic of like leadership and stuff, we might as well roll right into the question that I've asked pretty much every guest that's been a past master in here. For a potential worshipful master, incoming worshipful master, and new master, what would be your biggest piece of advice?
And this is, I think, my favorite question on this podcast. You guys, I knew I'd get asked this question, and I was listening, and I was like, well, he said that. You pretty much got it covered. So listen to the previous podcasts on all their wisdom, but I would add to that flexibility. When you build your plan for the year, don't forget to add in flexibility for when the plan kind of fails or you have to go to plan B. Try to have a little bit of flexibility so that, because when something does go wrong, or even if it's a minor detail, everyone's going to look at you first.
Yep.
What's the decision? And it helps to build the confidence in the lodge when you have a decision already. You just, we're just going to do this then. Okay, that's what we're going to do. That's helpful. And then also, I want to share a mistake that I made late in the year, and I learned from it too late. My year went really smooth for the most part. A lot of things were foregone conclusions. You have officer buy-in. Everything's great. The plan's going well. You got flexibility. Everything's going good until it comes to a piece of furniture of all things. So it turned into a discussion. Let's have a discussion on this. And then it happened real fast. A motion was made and we didn't have all the information, and I allowed it to go to a vote, and I didn't need to. I did because it's a democracy, and I'm a very democratic style of leadership where whatever the lodge wants, that's what we're doing. But there are times when, regardless of where the lodge is trying to steer something, it's your duty to go, we don't have all the information, hit the gavel and say, we're tabling this. Right?
Sending it to committee.
That's what I should have done. And I allowed it to go through the process. And I shouldn't have, because we did not have all the information. So I learned that late. And after that meeting, I was like, something went wrong. What was it? And I was reflecting on it. I was like, duh. I have the gavel of authority, and I didn't use it. So I would say, don't be afraid to use the gavel of authority, even if someone's going to be upset that you didn't let the process go through. But honestly, that's your job.
So I was reading before you guys got here, Carl Cloudy's The Master's Book.
Love that
And it
book.
was actually a section I was reading that's exactly on what you're talking about, where they go,
there is a section,
the master allows things to go to the floor for vote. It allows, he's the one who decides if it gets tabled or laid over or gets sent to a committee. And I forget the exact line, but he says more or less something, paraphrasing, I don't want to pull out the book, that if the master just allows the lodge to kind of ramrod whatever they went through, he's disrespecting his chair, because he needs to be the check and balance to say, even if it should be going through, he has to pause and go, do I think it's right to let it go through, and then move it to motion to floor for vote, or say we need to send it to a committee, or we need to go, or we're not doing this, you guys have lost your minds, or whatever, and deal with that authority. And I had never thought about that before I was reading that this morning, so I'm happy you brought up that example.
In that book, I know, was it you that started giving the junior warden the book?
Yep.
I did the same thing as senior warden. I bought that book, And I was like, oh, wow, I should have read this last year. You
Yeah.
know? So I started giving it to the junior warden at Waukesha and said, you need to pass this on with the chair. So we're doing the same thing over at Waukesha. The master's book goes to the junior warden every year.
Nice. I was given a copy on my 40th birthday as a birthday present from Worshipful Brother Jeff Teely.
Mm-hmm.
And I read it, and then I bought another copy and gave it to Andrew and said, just start this tradition going.
Yep.
We're going to start passing this to every
It
junior
really
warden
is.
as they come in.
Here's the
Here it
quote.
is. Yeah.
To permit interference with the ancient usages and customs which surround the master's chair decreases the reverence for tradition. No motion to lay on table, to postpone, to adjourn, to close, for unanimous consent, a brother to speak, or for previous questions should ever be entertained, much less put in. It is only for the master to say whether the subject is to be discussed now or later. The lodge is open and closed at his pleasure. So for that purpose, it is the master to say who may and may not speak and represents the peace and harmony for the entire lodge.
Yep.
Nailed it.
Yep. That book has so many valuable insights in it.
It really does. It's for everyone listening, get a book of that, especially if you're going through the line right now. Get the book. I don't care if you're a steward. Just get the book and,
Right.
Then maybe you can give a peaceful advice to if you see your senior warden or master doing something that goes clearly against something that's in the master's book, maybe remind them like, hey, you probably shouldn't be doing that. I mean, that book is full of wisdom.
Well, and when I was reading that, it made me kind of understand why Rob's rule of order
Yes, right.
is so important, because you can see a discussion get so chaotic where it's he's speaking, they're speaking, that as a master, your head's just on a swivel.
It happens fast.
And you're like, whoa. And so it makes sense why you have to stand. And so the master can pause and go, okay, you speak.
Yep.
Done. You speak, to try to keep it so he has the time to even reflect on what are we even talking about? Because if it's a heated discussion, it can get to the point where like, all right, let's vote. And you're like, wait, what are we doing? And then it's just, it runs away from you.
What happened?
Whereas if the, Rob's rule of order is followed correctly, it gives you more time to have that pause to go, actually, we're not. Or
we're not going to
we
entertain
are.
that motion. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I should have done. It happens so fast. And if it happens to you, it's going to happen fast. Just kind of think it in the back of your mind. Remember, the gavel of authority is a big deal because it's the gavel of authority and it's the only one in the room for a reason. So you want to make that decision? Make that decision. We're going to table this. You don't have all the information, just table it. You can decide on it later. Have the meeting after the meeting, get all the information out, and then vote on it the next meeting if you want, or don't vote on it.
Well, then you have a month to reflect too, like take some time to internalize it.
Right. Well, and I think that's the key is, when some of these motions get made and stuff like that and they come up in lodge, is your stated business meeting is not the time to have an open committee meeting about something, right?
No.
And that's when it starts to turn into that. That's when, like, no, all right, you guys can all be on a committee and figure this out outside of this room and then report on it for us, right? Because we're not going to waste the entire lodge's time trying to get information we don't have.
What do you think, at what point is the proper time to do that? Is it when the fifth person stands up to speak to go, all right, this is going, like two people stand up, normal conversation, get to 3 or 4, you're like, this is starting to become.
That's when you start thinking about it. And if the same point gets repeated over again, I feel like too. Like,
and people start throwing personal anecdotes in.
Yeah.
And then you could tell when it starts to go down into, okay, this conversation isn't really going to actually get anywhere, or you could feel it. The room can feel it when they're like, okay, we need to move on. And you'll feel that and be like, I think this needs to be tabled, committee, however you want to do it, and just move on. Worshipful Brother Dale Hartung, who was the first person I met from Waukesha when I did the internet inquiry, he told me anything in your meeting should be a foregone conclusion. And if it's not, it needs to be figured out more outside of the meeting. So when you're voting on something, there's going to be a couple people that have some discussion, but for the most part, your officers are going to be already on board with it because you've already ironed out all those details. All those questions have already been asked at the meeting after the meeting or the meeting before the meeting. It's all the stated meeting should be, we're going to vote. for the majority, it's going to be it's either going to be passed, or you're probably not even going to vote on it because you already know this is not the way the lodge wants to go. So we're just not going to do it. It should be a foregone conclusion. And I think 9 out of 10 times that's probably true. And if it's not a foregone conclusion, then you probably shouldn't be doing it in the stated meeting, because it could quickly go down into that where
Right.
where you're like, oh, when do I cut this off? Like, this isn't working.
Right. Yeah. You're definitely, you shouldn't be. There's 2 things that shouldn't happen at the stated business meeting. You shouldn't have a committee meeting about something you need more information on going on in the lodge room, and you shouldn't be event planning in the lodge room.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, who's going to bring the soda? Who's going to do the grocery
Oh,
shopping
my
for this? And
God, yeah.
that should not be part of
Nope.
the stated business meeting. That gets handled outside. You're wasting a bunch of people's time that aren't involved in that process by having it in your stated meeting.
Yeah, in my opinion, stated meeting should be your usual business. Pay your bills, talk about your things that you have to talk about in the meeting, and then Masonic education, things you can't really talk about outside of the lodge room. You could feel free to discuss all the signs and words and all the stuff that you want to talk about openly in the lodge room, and then close the meeting and talk about everything else after. And you can let the guys who aren't interested, who are not involved and don't want to, because you get a lot of guys that stop coming to meetings because I don't want to hear about all these different committees talking details. Who gets the soda? Who's getting this? They don't want to hear that. They just want to come to be there with their brothers, get some Masonic education, and then they're probably just going to go home after that.
Yep. Or go have fellowship or do
Or
whatever they
join in
want.
the fellowship, yeah.
And I mean, that's why they call it committee reports, not committee planning. They're supposed to do,
Right.
and every time I've had to report, I try to have it like one paragraph, like this happened, we're planning to do this, this is the update, done. You don't have to have, hey, Bob, do you have a thing to say? Hey, Bill, did you ever hear about? And you're like, no, you should have collected that as the chairman, all of that information, and just said, we're saying this, done. And then make it, boom, done. This committee, done. That committee, done. That committee, done.
Mhm.
Move along.
Summary and updates.
And some of the things, so before me was Mike Consiglio. So Worshipful Brother Consiglio started this thing where he gave it to Senior Warden and me, who like, hey, pick up items that are going to end up in a discussion. They're going to have questions, things like that, things that everybody can hear. Bring them to dinner, because we have dinner beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So we now have dinner topics.
Right.
And anything that's going to end up with questions and all that stuff, we will just bring it up at dinner.
That's a really good idea.
And all the shrine events and things like that, those are all announced at dinner now, because we have EAs and FCs and stuff that might be able to go to Sportsman's Night, Festival of Trees, things like that.
Right.
Why just have it in the lodge room? You could have it at dinner, and we have dinner beforehand, so we're able to do that. I don't know how many lodges do that, but it was perfect for us because all the announcements and all of the conversations that require discussion and question and answer, that there's going to be questions and answers, you just know that someone's going to ask something, bring it up at dinner. So we started doing that, and it's worked really well. Our meetings got a lot more efficient.
That's a good idea.
People have been coming to dinners, so I think that's been really effective. So if people can try that, if it works, awesome.
Just roll out the podium. It's like the toast again. Somebody walks up.
Our senior
"All right,
warden will
guys."
just stand up and be like, hey guys, we have a few announcements, and he'll raise his voice and everybody will quiet down. And then we, and it's like towards the beginning of actually eating, so that the discussions can happen naturally while we're eating and questions can be asked and people can, digest everything.
Literally and
Literally and figuratively.
Right on.
And it's worked out really well. And I think we're going to continue doing it for a while.
Yeah.
And that's,
Well, it sounds like a good idea. You give people more time to formulate their thoughts and opinions on the topic too. And
organized. So that even if they do bring it to the meeting, you get out some of those questions that don't need to be in the meeting. They could just ask someone on the side and get the answer.
Yeah.
And it's like a social lubricant. It gives people something to talk about.
Yep.
If you have a table and no one knows what to talk about, they're like, oh, we can talk about whatever the new announcement is.
Yeah, we
Oh,
can
that's
talk
interesting.
about,
What about that? You guys want to go to that? Like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, the Festival of Trees always comes up every year and people are interested, and there's always someone who has no idea what it is, and that becomes a topic of conversation. Same thing with Sportsman's Night and all those events that go on. It becomes a topic of conversation at dinner, And that way they're not like trying to have these side conversations, which is super annoying in the East.
Oh, yeah.
That northwest corner over there of past masters starts giggling about something.
You're sitting there trying to talk, and you just hear pss, pss, pss,
Yeah.
pss, 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 in your ear, and you're like, really?
Yeah, just encourage all that at dinner. Yeah.
Yep. That's a good call.
Now that's been a very, very instrumental to keeping our meetings more efficient. Because when you have more efficient meeting, you can have more education at the end.
Right.
And like really good education. We are blessed to have Chris Lukey
Right.
at almost every meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So off the cuff, even when we're like, well, we planned for a long meeting, but it actually went very well. And so we didn't really plan to have a big Masonic education piece, but Chris Lukey's here. So, hey, do you have something planned? Nope. But right off the cuff, he can, he did one about the pillars and explaining cubits and a whole bunch of cool stuff at our last one. And there was no Masonic education plan because it was supposed to be a long meeting full of getting things done. And it was a little bit short. And Worshipful Brother Miller's like, hey, Worshipful Brother Lukey, what do you got for us? And off the cuff, man, just right off, just did an excellent Masonic education piece. So,
Right on.
yeah.
Right on.
Cool.
What are you thinking, Andrew?
I think this was a good episode.
So do I. Think it's time for some news and events?
Sure.
All right.
Let's kick it off.
All right, it's time for some news and events. So first up, we have an article about Stick It to Bruce. St. John's Lodge number 57 continued their annual Stick It to Bruce fundraiser for local food pantries. Each year in December, Brother Bruce Esselman challenges the members of St. John's to donate money for food pantries. He matches the donations, thus allowing the brothers to stick it to him. This year, they presented a check for $1,400 to the Whitewater Community Food Pantry. So that's pretty good. They made Bruce pony up $700.
Hey, stick it to Bruce.
Yep. All right. That's a pretty cool event, actually. I like that.
It's kind of a fun idea. The next thing we had on our list here was I wanted to talk about the physical media grant that the Wisconsin Freemasonry leadership team and the physical media committee have kind of been putting out there. So they basically have 40 physical media grants. And so what that is it's through the Acts of Kindness program, they'll match up to $500 towards helping your lodge publicize and promote Freemasonry in your community. So what does that necessarily mean? So right now they've actually had 15 lodges who have qualified. So there's still a lot of, I guess for better or worse, there's money on the table for a handful of lodges, or more than a handful, honestly, to kind of upgrade their ways of getting their Freemasonry out in the communities. So what qualifies for this program is placement of ads at local restaurants, newspaper ads, billboards, banners, yard signs, sponsorship for community events, advertising and sponsorship for youth sports or facilities or teams, update improving your lodge signage. You've seen a couple of lodges been doing that, and any other physical media. And so it's really a great opportunity because you're just being offered free money to match with the Grand Lodge to get signage and cool different ways to advertise your lodge. So if you are interested in this program, you just need to reach out to Brother Kevin Gruber. It's going to be the district deputy of D7, I should say, and he can give you more details on how that all works and how to apply. Otherwise, you can always reach out to your district deputy as well, and they can give you more info. And a good example of that is that Crivet's Masonic Center got a new fancy sign, and it's big, it's right on the front of their building, and it looks awesome. And, if Grand Lodge is willing to help you out, it's worth checking out.
Right on. Yeah, Watoma just got a sign for their building, too. Looks pretty awesome. Love my Watoma brothers. So...
And those are due by May 1st, 2024, or until 40 applications have been approved. So 15 have been done, at least when I'm reporting. It could be more now. But so if you're interested, please reach out to your district deputy.
For sure. All right, on to events. We'll start with February. February 9th is the deadline for the Masonic Education Speaker Contest. See page 6 of your February Wisconsin Masonic Journal for more details. February 17th, Waterloo Lodge I'm going to back up a second. February 10th, which is a couple days after this comes out, I hope to see a bunch of you at James M. Hayes Lodge Crawfish Boil. So hope to see you guys there if you're coming. Just a reminder, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon that it starts. February 17th, Waterloo Lodge number 63 is doing a Valentine's Day luncheon. Social hour at 11, meal at 12. It's $50 a couple at Stable Walk Winery and Distillery. Please RSVP to Brother Dan Slavic by, as of the release of this episode, tomorrow, February 9th. So if you haven't RSVP'd and you want to go to that, you should be doing that now. Also on February 17th, Rock River Lodge invites you to an out-of-lodge experience. Dinner at the Iron Ridge Inn for our brothers and ladies, 5:30 p.m. social. Dinner at 6, cash bar, $30 a person, $60 a couple. RSVP to Rock River Lodge. More details on page 26 of your Wisconsin Masonic Journal. On February 19th, Hiram Lodge, number 50 Table Lodge. Gather at 6 p.m. Dinner in Table Lodge at 6:30 p.m. All Masons, including entered apprentices and fellow crafts, are invited. It's at the Wisconsin Masonic Center. Cost is $30. Please RSVP by February 11th to Brother Lyle Christian. February 24th, the Masonic Acts of Kindness Gala fundraiser at the Eau Claire Masonic Center. See page 8 for more details. I know that is filling up fast, if not full already. So if you're up in the Eau Claire area, make sure you are signed up for that. Also on February 24th, Waukesha Lodge's number 37's Shrimp Boil. Doors open at 5 p.m., dinner at 6:30. And I do believe that event is sold out. Excellent job with that one, guys. I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad me and a few brothers and ladies from Lake got our table early. So, all right, Andrew, you want to take over on events?
March 1st, Lake Lodge 189 is having their axe throwing night. This is a great fun night. It's open to friends and family at the North-South Club. We're going to yeet some axes at stuff. Not people, stuff. So if you would like to go, you please need to RSVP with Worshipful Brother Jeff Teely by February 16th. You can find his information in the journal or on our lodge. Make sure you get that in by February 16th. So that's about a week from when this episode's coming out.
Or sooner, because spots are filling up fast and there is a cap.
Yep, and basically pricing is determined by how many people we get. If we max out our cap, it's going to be cheaper, probably around between like $30 to $40. So depending on how many people we get, we can get a good price and have a lot of fun. On March 3rd, Reedsburg Lodge number 79 is doing their chicken pies. So you can actually pre-order this really delicious chicken pie. And it is like a deep dish. It looks delicious. They're served, they are made fresh, frozen, and then they're going to be doing pickup. And that is going to be, the pickup is on the 3rd. It's going to be at the VFW from 9 to 1 p.m. And if you'd like more info on that, reach out to Reedsburg Lodge. On March 9th, there's the Tom Torville Interstate Table Lodge. It's going to be from 4 p.m. Starts at 4 p.m. Social is at 5 p.m. Social's at 4 p.m. Meals at 5 p.m. And that's at Toma Masonic Center. If you're interested, please RSVP with District 5 Deputy Jacob Schultz. The 23rd of March, the Valley of La Crosse Scottish Rite is having their reunion. It's going to be from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. On the 23rd as well, there's a district meeting in District 1. That's going to be at 10 a.m. at the Iron River Masonic Center. So, not only is this a district meeting, there is a Masonic bowling tournament that follows this meeting that's 1 block away from the building. So if you're in District 1 and you like district meetings and you like bowling, you got them both. Public is welcome at bowling. Make RSVPs to Brother Pat Norton. On March 28th, the Valley of Madison Scottish Rite is actually having their Feast of the Paschal Lamb. For more information, reach out to the Valley of Madison. On April 5th through 7th, the Scottish Rite Valley of Madison is having a presentation for the native spirit. This is going to be like a powwow and various other Native American-based events. Tickets are $35, so this can be running over a couple of days. More interested, check that out. On April 13th, the District 5 spring meeting is going on. It's going to have a social from about 7:30 a.m. They're going to have pancakes, coffee. The meeting's going to be from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., and that's at Sparta Masonic Center.
I'll go ahead and take over for you for a minute. You just rolled through a whole bunch. April 13th, Masonic Acts of Kindness Gala fundraiser down here in District 12. It'll be hosted at Lake Masonic Center. A whole bunch of stuff going on with that. See page 24 in the Wisconsin Masonic Journal for it. Also, if you happen to be interested in donating any raffle prizes or silent auction prizes, please get a hold of me, Worshipful Master Matt Conrad at Lake. What else do we got? April 20th. Wow, we're going way out on this one.
Give them all the info.
Right. April 20th, Silas Shepard, along with James Hazelodge, will be presenting a two-person play entitled In Defense of the Ruffians with carbs and coffees at 9 a.m., gavel at 10 a.m., and that'll be at the Northwest Masonic Center. Also on April 20th, I believe, is a DeMolay ritual competition out in Madison.
That sounds right.
Yep. April 24th, Valley of Madison Scottish Rite Spring Reunion. They'll be doing the 4th, 14th, and 16th degrees. April 27th, the Valley of Madison Scottish Rite the reunion continues with the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 32nd. April 29th, you have the District 12 Spring Meeting, and April 29th, you also have Ozaki Lodge, number 17, Table Lodge and Fish Boil. Starts at 5:30, open at 6, $25 a person. All Masons are welcome. RSVP to Worshipful Master Schroeder out there. And that's it for events.
Kind of want to go to that Table Lodge. Cool. Well, that's it for events. And Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us today and instilling with good wisdom.
Of course, happy to be here. Like I said, I'm honored to be on this podcast, and I'm looking forward to more fellowship with you guys. It's natural because we hang out a lot.
Right.
Perfect.
Exactly. Make sure you're following. I'll echo Andrew's sentiments. Thank you for coming in, and make sure you're following us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and now TikTok. We have started creating podcast relevant content on TikTok to get our names out there a little bit more. And
if you have any friends and then there are any brothers who are interested in Masonic content, send them our way. We'd love to have some more people join us in some sweet, sweet, sweet fellowship.
And you can always email us at timeforfellowship@gmail.com.
Timeforfellowship@gmail.com. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one, everybody.